Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gata Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gata Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a wonderful guest with us. I'm so happy he was able to join us. His name is Eric Krawetz, and he is pretty much a fitness star as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
and
stop.
Yeah, and he's here with us today. I work with him, and actually he's moving on to bigger and better things, but I had worked with him. And thank you for being here, Eric.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
What I really wanted to discuss with you is the idea of fitness and what it does for mental health, because there's so many studies, especially today, about this is a real thing. Okay, it's a real factor in possibly preventing depression. I know that you commit to a regimen and you take care of yourself so well. What has been your experience with benefits of exercise and mental health?
So I was always active my entire life. I played soccer until from like age 3 or 4 to I was at 18. And I went on to college. I originally went to a school in Pennsylvania to study physical therapy because I thought that's what I wanted to do at the time. And I had no physical output, and I just didn't really feel like not so much that I didn't belong at where I was going to school, but it just didn't feel right. You know, when you know?
Yeah.
And so I just felt like I didn't have a lot of control of my situation. I made this big decision, probably the biggest decision of my life thus far, and it's not even a large decision on, based on academics, but it's a large financial decision as well for upper education.
Right.
There was a gorgeous facility I went to the University of Scranton, a gorgeous facility. And I must have tagged along with some friends at first. Like, that's kind of where it started. Like there was, that wasn't my first time in a weight room, like in high school. I remember going in like as a freshman and seeing the senior like football team workout and being like, I'm very impressed, like, because I had a late growth spurt and I was definitely on the smaller side. But I think just there was a lot of things accumulating of like seeing somebody and what I could accomplish, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, this is really cool to me. And I think having that sort of outlook, I continue to push myself forward and like drive myself. And I think, and over time, it's just something that I've learned to love.
Do you think it's satisfying and encouraging and inspiring that it's something measurable?
Yeah, I think, and especially it can be difficult when you're persistent. And I've been working out on a regular basis for 3 years now. And it would be tough to continue going if there was no progress.
Right.
If I hadn't seen progress with my size, or if I haven't seen progress with my strength, then, it would be hard to keep going. It's like, why would I, I'm somebody who, like, in a good way, is always looking for the next thing.
Right.
Like, it's not like I'm in the middle of a task and, oh, forget that, I have this now. Like, it's very much like, okay, this is all said and done. Like, what can I do now to, progress or improve? And like, for me, life is just an unfinished work. And I think I get that from my dad. So I think, continuing to push myself forward through, seeing progress is
right.
It helps. It really does help.
Now, do you have a very dedicated routine? How often does it change? Like, I know personally with I used to work out a lot, and that was years ago when I could afford a really nice gym. But I kind of went on a whim in terms of like every day would be like something different. And I was able to do that because they have all these classes and everything. Whenever you join a gym, it's easier to like kind of commit to it because you say to yourself, well, I'm putting out money every month. Right. How do you do it? Do you have a regular regimen that you do every day?
I approach it on a weekly basis.
Oh, okay.
And I structure myself I'm working out for 5 days, and I have 2 off days because, it's really important. Your body needs to rest, because if you continue to push the envelope with absolutely no rest, then you're going to either plateau and make no progress, or you're going to end up hurting yourself.
Wow.
That's from my experience.
Yeah.
I continue to push myself with no rest days, or if I've done the same thing every day, which is something I did probably towards the beginning of my, when I started really, lifting weights, did like the same thing every day. And I definitely started to see a decline after a little while, because it's like your body just needs that natural rest.
Wow.
But so I try and split it up as 3 days on with more of like a push, pull, and a leg day, pushing with like tricep activation. So if I'm doing like an overhead press, working the shoulders, if I'm working the chest, but I'm always making sure that my triceps are activated and I'm really working them. And then the pull is like, whether it's like a seated row or I'm doing pull downs, just making sure the biceps activated as well. And then after those 3 days, I'll do a rest day. But for the leg day, I kind of leave that on a whim. Like, it's kind of what I'm feeling that day. Like, if my back's a little sore, if my back's a little stiff, I'm not going to push myself. Like, I'm definitely, observant of how I'm feeling. And maybe I'll just kind of do some little, I'll do some cardio or something of that sort, or some squats or something.
So do you stick mostly to weightlifting?
Yeah.
I'm actually referring to a Time magazine article that says, "Can exercise prevent depression?" Here is what the science says. It's actually from 2019, but clearly it still applies. And they say that people with depression really feel a lot better with physical activity, but specifically resistance training, like weightlifting, even more so than like high levels of intense cardio. I don't know. Why do you think that is?
For me, it definitely helps with body image. I think a lot of the talk about body image is a lot around women. And I don't think enough is talked about men. And that people may have an issue with that, but I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of the male physiques that are, that men are trying to aspire for can only be attained through performance enhancing drugs, and it's completely unnatural.
Wow.
So I think for me, trying to, accomplish something I physically can't, it's a driving force, but it also it helps, because it's like I'm feeling good about myself through lifting weights. It's like a nice healthy dosage of serotonin that I feel really, because I feel confident.
Right.
And, and when that ties together with why I started working out, like if after a nice workout, I can look at myself in the mirror and be really proud of the work I've put in, that speaks volumes.
Wow.
And, and recently I've been paying attention more with like bodybuilding and like strength sports. And you look at like the peak of bodybuilding is an event called Mr. Olympia. And it's like everybody on that stage is doing steroids, one form or another. Like,
really?
Like
they don't test for that, huh?
They do, but it's for the competition.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of drug enforcement agencies have cracked down over time, but to respond to drug enforcement agencies, a lot of athletes were getting steroids prescribed by their doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's for the sake of competition at the end of the day. And I think that's the biggest issue, is that you have young kids looking up to star physique, athletes, and it's completely unattainable.
Wow.
Naturally.
Right. Naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like, to tie it back to what the study, I think really lifting weights and seeing the progress physically before your own eyes it's wonderful to see, because it shows that the hard work that you're putting in is paying off. And it's a nice confidence booster.
You did mention too about like how men do also deal with like, I guess, body positivity issues. And my son says that, on TikTok, there's an embracing of when women, who are stressing body positivity and maybe they're overweight, they get a lot of positive reinforcement. But, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's so great. You look beautiful." All the comments. But when men do it, he noticed, people make fun of the boys. And I'm thinking, the men do go through this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My experience actually has not been quite that, because I have a select group of guys who I know, who I'm in touch with, and we discuss, lifting and weight gain and like kind of like stuff like that. Not so much like help like muscular weight gain. And like I can be open and be like, yo, like I'm having issues developing this muscle. Like it might be, so for example, like the shoulder, it's broken up into 3 different muscles. I'm like, okay, like how can I accentuate this part, this particular head of my shoulder? Because because in my head, I see that's a major flaw. Meanwhile, like my friends, like we definitely like reinforce like, no, dude, you're on the right track. Like you're doing good. Like,
right.
I think we all understand the looking in the mirror and some days being really happy and other days just not.
Right.
And that's like the negative side of, you know, working out so much.
Wow.
I see the progress, but then if it's like, because I've been so focused, it's like, okay, I see that this is not where it should be. And then I put that blame on myself.
Right. I was going to say, like, do you ever feel like you put too much pressure on yourself with that kind of thing?
Kind of constantly. It's okay every once in a while. Like it's going to happen.
Right.
But not putting so much unbelievable pressure on myself that I feel bad about myself.
Right. I think that's like just across the board. We have to all learn to do that because it's we're our own enemies sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Like I can be so quick to uplift somebody else, but.
Right. And you are very good at that.
Thank you. But I feel like with myself, it can be tough to uplift myself.
Yeah.
Like for example, like yesterday I had a great workout. I felt really, really confident leaving. But then like earlier this week, I definitely felt like more lethargic and I was like, I just can't get myself to go. A lot of ups and downs to it too.
Right. How do you stick to it though? I think that's like one of the main things that people have a problem with.
In the beginning, it's a matter of just forcing yourself to go. It's like, it's brutal. Like it can be really tough sometimes. Just like, you know, it's like if you're having like a day, for example, where you just, you know, don't want to feel like, you don't want to get out of bed. And I definitely had those days and it's just like, you just have to like talk. I've talked myself out of days where it's like, okay, like I need to get up and accomplish something today because I'll feel better about myself. And I think reassure me that like, okay, if I get this done, it'll set the foundation for something else to get done. There's a really good commencement speech. It was the 2014 University of Texas at Austin graduation ceremony. And I think a former, I don't know if he was with the Navy or the Marines, but it was, his name is Admiral McCraven. And he talked about like lessons that he learned in boot camp. I think he was with the Navy SEALs actually. And he said that making your bed every day, like really like can set the tone because it's like the first thing you wake up, you make your bed. It's something you accomplish, and you have a bad day, you come home to a bed that you made. Yeah. And I did that for a little while because it was like, okay, like if I can set myself up with the foundation of, okay, I made my bed. What else can I accomplish? Okay, I can clean my room. Okay, now what can I accomplish? I can go to the gym.
Right.
So just whether it's, you know, providing yourself a foundation where you can, you know, do little tasks to do bigger tasks to fulfill much larger tasks, you can kind of build upon the positive energy that you've just laid out for yourself. But then when you're building the habit, you know, you're going to naturally have days where you're like, yeah, I don't really want to go. And that's fine. Like that's normal. But to really stick and create that habit and to eventually create like a lifestyle, it's like, you just got to force yourself some days. Like, I don't want to go, but I'm going to go because I know it's right for me.
Right. And that's really the key because it, I mean, I'm talking to you and I am getting inspired, but it's so true. Like, and right now I don't have any depression or anything. So people I know who are dealing with that kind of setback, it's not easy, but because sometimes you don't even want to get out of bed.
No.
But the thing is, they say if you do as little as 2 hours of exercise a week, which is 20 minutes per day, it's okay to start small.
Yeah.
For a person who's just beginning, because that's how you get, I guess, the endorphins or moving. And then I guess you could build momentum. They say even like a short walk, you know, is such a big thing for mental health. You could, if we just start with something small, then we could hope to.
Right. Develop into something bigger. Yeah. I mean, granted, I work out for probably 1.5 to 2 hours a day.
Wow.
5 days a week, but there's no reason why anyone should have to force themselves to, you know, attain 2 hours of exercise 10 hours of exercise a week. I mean, granted, a walk could take 30 minutes, walk could take 20 minutes. Just, putting the phone down, keeping it in your pocket, just, admiring the beauty of the world around you and just enjoying the wind and the breeze, like hits your body. Like it's good to feel like that kind of thing. Doing yoga, stretching, something like that. It doesn't have to be anything major. It doesn't have to be any serious weight training. It doesn't have to be super high intensity. I think just whatever makes somebody happy, whatever you want to do. Like hiking is great because it's like, I like hiking a lot because it's same deal. Phone goes away. You're walking through nature. You're walking, you're sweating. You're really working, and it's, you get to a top of a mountain. Maybe it's strenuous, maybe it's not, but that's something I did. Basically, like you can say I accomplished this 5-mile hike, or I did yoga for 45 minutes, and I have a little bit more peace of mind because I think whichever form of exercise that like somebody could deem best for them, then go for it. Because I like weightlifting because it's something I can see the progress. But let's take yoga for example. The more you do it, the more flexible you can become.
Right.
So noticing the flexibility, then you're seeing the progress.
Yes.
If you go on a hike, I was only able to hike 2 miles today. You keep hiking that 2 miles. Okay, now I want to do 3 miles. You do 3 miles.
It is so attainable when I feel it's so attainable when I listen to someone like you. And, just to remind people who are struggling with depression, because this is particularly really good for people who deal with depression. I also get that angle because it's really easy to fall into rumination in your mind.
Yeah.
And even me, like I've been like, even today, I was like, let me stretch. And I was like, wait, I don't have time for that. I have to run to work, my work at home. And I'm thinking, why didn't I just take the extra 15 minutes? I could have just stretched for yoga. I just feel like it's so clear that it's so good for you. But I know that people struggle. And yet there are people who are saying that a lot of the studies show that this can be almost an alternative therapy for people instead of drugs and instead of traditional. Yeah, they're finding that. So that's what's exciting to me. Because I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to just get these prescriptions by your doctor? Say, okay, well, why don't you exercise like 15 minutes a day, or whatever. And then there's like this sense of, I better do this because my doctor says it.
I think the best way is to do a little bit over time. Like 10 minutes of stretching. Instead, we'll be on your phone. It doesn't matter. If you want to stretch for 10 minutes, be on your phone, have a YouTube video playing in the background. Like it doesn't matter. Like but then continue to develop on the exercise you've done.
Right.
That sort of thing. I think just continuing to develop and expand the time and the different exercises. I think, instead of jumping in and saying, I'm going to do an hour of exercise, it's like, okay, I can start with maybe jumping up for 5 minutes and I can jump up for 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, continue to developing because it's not easy to it can be very challenging to get started.
I think that's really good advice, incremental steps, because, I think also what happens is, and I know I've been there with this choice, is that you say, okay, today is going to be the day I finally do my exercise. And you do like maybe an hour class or something. You feel all good about it. But then it feels like the next day, you're like, oh my God, I got to do another hour. Like you give yourself these goals that are unattainable at first, just because you need to build momentum and you need to, I guess, develop good habits. And that takes a little time. Right. But for you to just like jump in and then you get discouraged with yourself. And again, with a lot of people who experience depression, it's about getting out of bed and, envisioning a better day. I'm very inspired by this because I know I have a lake. I mean, you could see the lake from my house. Okay. And one rotation around the lake, it's like 20 minutes, like a mile and maybe a mile and a half. And it's like nothing. And you get to look at the lake. Like, why wouldn't I do it more often? And I know people, like a friend of mine, he just recently had cancer and he's walking every day for like 2 hours. It's like, and the thing is, I feel like part of that could have helped him in recovery, could have helped him in many, many ways. Exercise is also something that can be used along with other treatments for any kind of disease. And it could, like I said, it could be something as simple as walking.
Right. Humans are designed to move around. I think it's really important for us to just exercise in any way we can. And I think with my own experience, it's definitely benefited my mental health to a point where like now I don't rely on, like the gym used to be like a sanctuary, like an escape. Now it's not. And I enjoy that. I can appreciate the fact that like I don't rely on the gym for an escape. It's just something I love to do.
Right, right. And I guess that can also be, I guess, the other extreme. If you start feeling like, oh my God, I need.
Yeah. I definitely became really reliant on, okay, that's going on. I'm going to the gym, weight train for a couple hours and I'll deal with that later. But now I feel like I'm at a good spot where I don't feel like that. Yeah.
That's great. That's balance. Beyond exercise, you are pretty good with your diet. And I'm really big on nutrition. I think that I've saved myself from so many issues, in particular, bipolars or people who are diagnosed with such a thing. We do have some trouble with thyroid, and we have trouble with things like candida, which is gut health.
Okay.
Nutrition to me, whatever you put in your body is going to be who you are. And if you're putting a lot of things that like dirty carbs or, whatever it is, I eat carbs. I'm not anti-carb, but I'm just saying like, I'll reach for those chips constantly. I know they're not good for me or my mental health either, because it's like I want certain foods you get addicted to. And if there's lots of sugars or salt, so you just want more and more and more. Right. I know personally with nutrition, it was a health issue where if I didn't get firm quick about the things I put in my body, I was going to continue to feel very sick. And I was like, why do I want to go down that path? You know what I mean? And when I did make the switch, and it's been 10 years now, I've been gluten-free, I couldn't believe not only the results, because I took off like 40 pounds and I never put it back on. So it's something that, again, I think, just speaking about nutrition, it's so attainable once you get over that hump of, oh God, I got to give this up. The thing that was in my mind was like, oh, I got to give, because I'm Italian. So everything was pasta bread, you know what I mean? Like cheese, it was just, so I was like, oh, I got to give up pizza. But then I said, oh, wait, without pizza, then I'm going to take on more of this type of food. So then you kind of look forward to a new habit and a new type of food. And that was the thing that got me through, because I was like, okay, like, let me change my mind about this. It doesn't have to be a lack. It could be a gain too. So with a removal of something, I guess something else can come in. And I remember you saying something that you experienced, like you made some choices with fasting and diet, and you've gotten back on track a few times when you fell off. Like, what kind of diet do you subscribe to?
Right now, it's a pretty lax diet. But so my experience with fasting came right at the beginning of the pandemic. Everything shutting down, the gym shutting down. And I was definitely eating a little too reckless. High protein. So I was, able to enforce the muscle gain, but it was a lot of, high fats, high carbs as well. And I definitely was at a point where I didn't feel like I felt good because I was pushing the weight I wanted to, but I didn't feel good.
Right.
My body didn't feel good. My joints didn't feel good because I was at a weight where I was like, okay, my body's not supposed to feel like this. I shouldn't feel like this, especially with what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm just shy of 200 pounds. My knees were hurting. Yeah, my knees were hurting a lot. And I just didn't feel good. Like I could feel it in my chest. I just didn't feel good a lot of the time. Yeah. So I had to, so gym closes. I have to kind of reassess here, because I'm like, I'm eating for no activity. All right. I'm not guaranteed any physical activity now. I have to go do that on my own, like elsewhere. So I'm like, okay, how can I reassess? So I thought of intermittent fasting. Said, okay, so I did my research. And so I did 12 hours of fasting. Mind you, most of it was sleep. If I'm sleeping 7-8 hours, that's fine. But so I use that as a gateway to fast for 16 hours a day. So I would, 8 hours a day, I would leave myself a window to eat, to which it was 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I tried to eat good, but if I was at work or something and I had a burger or a sandwich, didn't matter. Like I try to maintain my regular eating habits within that 8-hour window because I still had to put fuel into my body.
Right.
Now that I'm restricting myself. So I ended up losing all the weight.
Wow.
So I was down to the lowest I was. So I ended up getting a deviated septum fixed in August. And I mean, this pre-surgery, I was probably 172.
Okay.
So I had lost a significant amount of weight.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah, about just over 10% of my total body mass was down within 4 or 5 months.
And so you stuck to that dietary.
Yeah, I would wake up, have a glass of water and a cup of black tea. I would go to work, whether it was at the restaurant or at the wine store. I would wait until 1 or 2 o'clock, but I would always cut off at 9 o'clock because I didn't want to. Because I've noticed, over time that if I eat right before we go to bed, I wake up and I'm full, and I, 1, don't want to eat breakfast, 2, can't eat breakfast, and 3, I don't feel good. Right. So I always cut myself off at 9 regardless. And so, but within that window, I was, eating to make sure I was okay. But then because, but then I felt really good. Like I was energized naturally, not because I had my tea in the morning I was staying hydrated, but I was, I felt like really naturally energized, which was good because I felt like I had a system that worked for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of people say good things about the intermittent fasting.
Yeah. And so last summer, I just ended up taking extra classes because, I was home because of the pandemic. I was supposed to go to France with my parents, my brother, and that fell through.
Right.
So I ended up taking some extra classes, and I did like a whole report on intermittent fasting. And it's
really,
there's a lot of studies have been done, especially more in recent times. Everything, it can be really good. It can be very harmful. Just, you have to be careful. But for me, it was very beneficial as a nice hard reset for my body.
Yes.
Because I was, like I said, I was at a point in my life where it's okay, this is the most I've ever weighed. It was the strongest I've ever been by far, but I didn't feel good. So I was like, okay, so I have to do, I'm going to use this time to do a hard reset so that when things do pick up, I can feel good about myself and move the weight I was moving.
Right. Well, it's funny because I have issues with liking to stay up and eat at night. Mm-hmm. And I was experiencing such stomach issues and I know better, but still it was like I'm working at 12 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then I'll grab a bunch of nuts and my stomach would be tossing and turning, and it would be difficult with my sleep, which is what a lot of people experience, whether it be any kind of mood issues with bipolar disorder or whatever it is. One of the things that people have trouble with is not being able to go to sleep, or they have insomnia. So again, the intermittent fasting is very interesting because that's one of the main things. You don't eat late into the night because how are you going to do that math where what are you not going to eat until 6 o'clock the next day? You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. And I couldn't do the 16 hours. It's impossible for me.
And that's okay.
Because I'm a grazer, so I don't have big meals. So it's I like to do small throughout,
Yeah, I have big meals though. That's the thing.
Right.
I'll wake up, I'll have a big breakfast. I'll go to the gym, I'll have 2 medium-sized meals between dinner and breakfast. And then dinner's a big meal.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying I'm force feeding myself, but it's quite a lot of food.
Mm-hmm. Do you focus on proteins?
Yeah, I've seen studies that say that the human body only digests 25 to 35 grams of protein an hour. That's what I've seen, and then the rest gets digested and distributed to other parts of the body, where those, let's say, 35 grams of protein goes to the muscles, because muscle growth comes from basically it's when you tear the microfibers of the muscle, and then they heal back and they grow back bigger.
Right.
I've seen that. I've also seen that you need to consume, right now I'm a comfortable 180, and I've seen you need to eat your body weight in grams of protein. So I would need to eat 180 grams of protein regularly, which is actually very difficult to even accomplish.
Yeah, 180 grams of protein per day?
Per day.
Oh my
So I try and hit, obviously I'd make sure I have like fruit and vegetables because it's just your body needs it. Definitely carb a lot, but I always try and make sure I hit like triple digits with like grams of protein.
Wow. So what are your protein sources?
A lot of breakfast is always eggs.
Eggs, yeah.
I try not to do a ton of milk because I don't know if I have a lactose intolerance or I just try not to rely on constantly chugging milk.
Right.
But, it could be chicken. It could be, it's kind of affordable. Like if I want to do steak, I definitely high protein, like a cut of like London broil, like really cheap, but like if you do it right, you can slice it real thin. You get a lot of good pieces out of it. It's not so tough. I'm also not afraid to go out, and if I wanted to get like some protein cookies or some protein bars, just as a snack. Yeah, and one thing that as I've continued to work out over time, one thing I've lost the fear of is not so much lost the fear of, but like I've come to an understanding that like sometimes I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on food.
Right.
Sometimes if there's no food at home, I'm going to have to go buy food.
Right.
I'm also not afraid to resort to like canned tuna. It's not the tastiest thing, but if I need to get my protein in, like one can be like 40 grams of protein.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, really. And if you can make it taste good and you can get it down, like, there's definitely days where I'm like, okay, like definitely isn't what I want to eat, but like,
right.
If I feel like I need to get in my protein, like I don't mind resorting to a can of tuna.
Right. And you do shakes and stuff too, like protein shakes?
I did for a while. I think when I started working out, because I think, the typical thing was if you're 17 and you're starting to work out, you go to GNC, you buy protein powder and because you feel like that's just, it helps. If it works for you, go for it. But it doesn't work for me. Like it's just easier for my body to digest solid foods.
Right.
Also, I'm also kind of lazy and I don't like cleaning the blender, to be completely honest with you. Every day, you make this nice shake and then you got to clean up the mess, which is annoying.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I do like to result on solid foods too, instead of, relying on protein powder with milk or almond milk or whatever I choose. And because it can get thick and it can really stay in my system for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, and if I know people who do several shakes a day, and if that's what works for you, then go for it.
Right. The protein is interesting because when I've been on Weight Watchers at different times when I was overweight, and one of the things that they say is you're supposed to like use your hand to see the portion size, right? And I stuck to that for a while, but when I spoke to this girl I'm working with, she's a naturopath and she's helping me with psych drug removal. She's really pro protein and fats, healthy fats for brain health. And when she said that, I was like, you know what? I probably rely on carbs a little too much. And I eat healthy carbs. I eat oats. There's a handful of things. Okay. And it's soothing to me. I think a lot of people reach for baked goods and stuff like that because there is a comforting factor to it. But proteins and fats are really brain food. So, it is very important to incorporate that. And I will say, since I've incorporated more proteins, because she told me that, I've been feeling better. I'm less tired. I have less brain fog. I'm able to, kind of have more energy. So I'm going more in that direction too, in terms of trying to raise my protein. And there's so many ways, as you say, you can do it, and healthy fats are easy too. I mean, if you like avocados, right there.
Right there.
That's all you need. And olive oil.
And then you can have fun with it. You can put, lime juice, get your vitamin C. Cilantro is good for you. Your body needs salt, so you toss in a little salt.
I put it with hard-boiled eggs, and I mush it all up, and it tastes like egg salad.
Really?
It's so good because you never have to add any mayonnaise because it's so smooth and creamy. So you're eating this, and you're like, oh, my God, this is like far better than an egg salad, and it's like just an avocado and an egg.
What did you do with scrambled eggs? Or you said hard-boiled egg?
Hard-boiled egg. So you mush it all up, so it's like an egg salad. Oh, my God, it's so good. A little salt and pepper. But that's because I had to find a way to add more protein and fat. So I don't even use it with bread, like gluten-free bread. I just get good crackers, quinoa crackers or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I guess it's like when you know what you're supposed to do, you can get creative about how to incorporate it into your life.
Last night I grilled some like hanger steak and wings, like just, make it exciting.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing also, it's not only what you're eating, but it's a matter of cutting out what you shouldn't be eating. So I think,
Exactly.
so it's like carbs are fine. It's just what carbs are you eating? So now it's because so much is processed.
Right.
And so one thing I remember I said to you last week is that, so I started baking over quarantine. I started making bread for the first time, which is it was a lot of fun. It was a good experience and something I'm actually probably going to do later. Make some bread.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my
Love
mom got me like a baguette pan.
Oh yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out French baguettes and
wow.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's like a real commitment.
It's a time commitment because
but it's so creative.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really, I mean, granted, it's a little more, it is creative to an extent, but it's also a little sciencey, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So for example, with the sciencey part is that gluten is naturally occurring in bread.
Right.
So the more you knead dough, it becomes like harder to pull apart, and that's the gluten being activated.
Oh.
Yeah, so the gluten's naturally occurring in bread. I'm pretty sure as long as the yeast is present. So I think it's a matter of the processed carbs that we're ingesting, because like Wonder Bread, it's fine, right? It's cheap. It tastes good, but but if you make a fresh loaf of bread, it looks completely different.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the cheaper breads on the market are going to be more processed. And I think that's the downside of it all, because it's like we could be eating carbs, but it could be probably not so good.
It is interesting because I do eat gluten-free bread, but when I have a Candida diet, breads are the first thing to go, even gluten-free, because it's so processed.
Right.
And there's things in there that activate other issues, that even though, okay, you got rid of the gluten, there's other things as well. And sometimes I have to cut out rice because it could be very starchy, but I embrace potatoes.
One thing you can do for your rice is something that my family has done for as long a time. I let my rice soak in water, and you clean the starch off.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like I'll completely rinse it. I'll let it sit in like a water bath, like ice cold water bath for a little while. Rinse it, like put it in a colander, just spray it down, get all the starch off of it.
Well, see, that's good to know, because I used to do that. I remember I was doing that because I was told to do that somewhere in the directions. So I would do it, but I stopped doing that. And it's these little tiny things that you do incorporate into preparing food as well that helps. Mm-hmm. You have to, I guess, be careful with anything that you put in to your system. I think in terms of fat, like I'm pro fat. I never count fat calorie. Fat grams. I never, because I'll eat nuts and I'll eat, the avocados, and all those things are really important for your mood, especially. So if you are always one of the diets that got to the fad diets are sugar-free and fat-free, but I try to be very low sugar, but a lot of the times sugar-free in processed foods, they just put all these artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, and a lot of the artificial sweeteners are
just as bad.
They're either just as bad or worse.
Or worse.
My mom uses natural cane sugar. I think it's brown. It's not bleached.
I went to stevia, which is good too. Yeah, there's so many sweeteners that are natural, like literally like applesauce. You could put in half your baked goods, or a banana, or, like maple syrup or honey. Those have like properties that are naturally good for you because it's found in nature.
Right.
And even fruits, yet on this Candida diet I'm on right now, I do have to eliminate so many fruits. I would consider myself even more than a vegetable lover, a fruitarian. I just am constantly eating fruit all day long, which is good on one level. But then when I get over sugared, I have to cut out fruit.
Yeah, it has its downsides. Yeah.
Although if people do want to know fruits that are really okay for you when you are worrying about sugar, green apples has a lot less sugar than any other fruit. And berries are always good because it's high in antioxidants.
Yeah, I always like putting, and I know you mentioned earlier with the carbs that you eat. You mentioned oats. Oats are really good for you.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure the difference. I think steel cut, I think there's a lot of different kind of oats. I'm not one to say which is better for you, but I think But oatmeal in general, it's very good for you.
Yeah, and you can make I make oatmeal flour. I mean, you could buy oat flour, but even like if you want a like interesting texture, I just like put it in the food processor and I make my own oat flour. And I make like little muffins with it and everything. And I'm like, this is I'm eating oatmeal. And I think I'm eating like this baked goods. And so it satisfies you psychologically, but you're using ingredients that are beneficial to your body in so many ways. You said something interesting about prioritizing your food and prioritizing in a way where money is put towards that. And I think that's one of the first things that people stop doing is worrying about the groceries they bring in, but they'll go out to eat a lot and spend a lot of money on that kind of food. So it's making those like one at a time choices, which I guess also refers to the exercise thing that we were talking about, because now, again, I feel like I have to go back to the drawing board, like look at my calendar and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing every day. 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there of some kind of movement.
You know, it's going to get warmer. It's going to get humid. It's going to get sticky. It's New York in summertime. So, I mean, even just, you know, going on a morning walk before the bugs really start to kick in.
Right.
You know, especially around where you live, where it's a really pretty area around the lake.
Do you suggest that, like just going, like starting the day with it right away to almost like get it out of the way and then start your day on a fresh note?
I like that. That's what works for me. I know for a little while I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I attacked the gym at like 5:30, which is nuts. Like, but the thing is, I like to do that before my day.
Does it set the tone?
Yeah, I set the tone for the day, and I had the gym to myself, so I wasn't worried about anybody else.
Right.
It was just focusing on, you know, improving myself. Yeah, I personally like to get up and I like to start immediately. Like there's been times where I've gotten up, didn't eat breakfast because I just attacked work, or, you know, if I had any homework to do, I just get up and start doing that. Like it's just, I like to set the tone for the day, and I that's what I would recommend, just anyway. You know, it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning, have a quick bite to eat, watch the news, whatever you do. But I like to exercise in the morning. Okay.
So then, you know what, Eric? I'm going to have to do this. I can't wait to incorporate this into my new routine.
I'll join you for a walk or two.
You know, one thing I'm going to do now that I'm vaccinated and I am not afraid anymore of the gym, I think I'm going to renew my membership because my son is dying to start working out. So that's kind of a nice mother-son thing to do, go to the gym together.
Yeah. It's something, you know, it's just something you both of you can share, and it's both something that you have together.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice. So, Eric, thank you so much for giving us all of your powerful insight, because a lot of people do work out and a lot of people are out there and they have their routine. But one thing that we always discuss was this subject, and it's not easy for everybody, but hearing how a person like you has done it and incorporated it into your life in such a way where you've experienced health and balance, you know, people need to hear that kind of narrative. And I'm really happy that you were able to share so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I've been very excited to come, and I'm glad we made it happen.
Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.